It's D-U-E-U tell. I see you by this point, you're reading my mind. It's time for football. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, man. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, yeah.
Welcome to Football Game Plan's NFL All-32 show. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and we've made it to week 1 of the NFL season. So we're going to get to all of the games on this week's slate. We're going to be joined by Chris James, who will talk to us about the 4 o'clock window games. And Gene Clemens will join us later in the show to break down the primetime games, including tonight's matchup between the Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. But first, let's get this show kicked off the right way by spinning you around the 1 o'clock slate of games. And man, do we have a ton of good matchups, like Philadelphia traveling to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Jalen Hurts is the guy in Philly to lead the Eagles, and in my opinion, they got the right man for the job. His ability helps everyone around him do their job very well and should help lead one of the most efficient offenses in the NFL. Defensively, up front is where they are strong and where the matchup lies within this game. For the Falcons, the offensive line will be the focal point, and if they can't protect, then they won't be able to get the football to their tremendous targets out there on the perimeter, and that's where they have the advantage. Unfortunately, the Eagles have the advantage in the trenches, and that's where games are ultimately won. The Steelers travel to Buffalo to take on the Bills, and it's a debut of running back Najee Harris, the Steelers' first-round pick, and you can sort of say it's a debut of their revamped offensive line, and that'll be the matchup to watch here, as the Bills did a great job of beefing up their defensive line, looking to apply more pressure than they did last season. And speaking of pressure, I like the Steelers' ability to create it, and that'll be a problem for Josh Allen in this ball game. This is a sneaky game in the sense that the Steelers match up very well, in my opinion, with the Bills, and I like them to go into Buffalo and steal the victory. Minnesota and Cincinnati meet up in the Queen City, and who can stop the run will ultimately be the winner of this game. We'll get treated to 2 of the league's best in Dalvin Cook and Joe Mixon. I do like the moves that both teams made to tighten up their defensive front, but on the flip side of that, you have questions about how well both did to shore up the offensive side of things in that regard to the line of scrimmage. The Vikings are a bit further along in that aspect of the game than the Bengals are, so look for Minnesota to have a bit more success on the scoreboard this Sunday. San Francisco and Detroit are next up, and I believe that this game will be all about the run game. I love what the 49ers do within their run game with their creativity and illusions, but at the end of the day, it's a physical run game, and don't get it twisted. They can play any type of game you want to. The Lions will use their run game to try to protect Jared Goff, trying to keep him in manageable down and distances in situations, but at some point, he's going to have to make a play for them, and the Niners defense will make sure that isn't happening at any crucial juncture of the game. I like San Francisco. Arizona travels out east to take on the Tennessee Titans, and this will be a matchup that will be won on the perimeter. When you look at the receiving core of Arizona and that revamped secondary of Tennessee, can the Titans win consistently on the perimeter? That will be something to watch for. The other matchup is up front defensively for Arizona. I thought they revamped their defensive pressure, adding a guy like Zaven Collins, and bringing in the J.J. Watt. That's going to be huge, especially on the right side of the Titans offensive line, where they look to get better after they had to replace their starter in Jack Conklin. So we'll see how this works out, but I do like Arizona in this one. I think their offense will prove to be too much for that secondary out there in Tennessee. You hate to say must-win games in week 1, but I feel like this feels like one for the Indianapolis Colts, more particularly for Carson Wentz. He has to come out and play well. He's missed a good portion of time throughout the course of the preseason with a foot injury and with the COVID protocol, so he needs to come out and have a great game. On the Seattle front, we want to see how well they've improved in the secondary. Can they match up on the corner and not give up the big play consistently like they did last year? We know the pressure will be there, and we know offensively they can run the football, and Russell Wilson can work touchdown to check down. But I'm mostly concerned about the cornerback position, and I think they'll do fine in this game because of the matchup. I like Big matchup here, cross-country battle between the Los Angeles Chargers and Washington football team. It's year 2 for Justin Herbert, and we'll see how well he does with a new offensive coordinator and a new head coach. But the things that remain the same should help them have success this year. That's the receiving core, and that's also that defense, when healthy, can get out there and play with the best of them. For Washington, which Ryan Fitzpatrick will show up? That's the biggest question for me. I love their defense. Their defense will be solid, but they need their offense to step up and make some consistent plays. I think this is a matchup that mirrors what they see in practice. The Chargers are a lot like Washington, and I think because of that reason, we're going to see the Chargers come out and win the game because they have the better quarterback in this matchup. I'm taking Los Angeles. Another intriguing matchup that's going to actually be a very entertaining game, that's the Jets and Panthers. The Jets, Zach Wilson looked phenomenal in the preseason because he looked calm, collected, cool. He didn't panic. And we didn't even see the Zach Wilson that made us like him as a prospect, the escapability and the ability to create off script. That's going to be unveiled in this ball game. I'm more interested in the Jets defense and how well they can generate pressure and also cover on the back end. For the Panthers, this is the redemption tour for Sam Darnold. Can he cut down on the turnovers, and can he be a complementary piece to their offensive attack? If he can do that, this team has enough young talent to go far. And when you look at this matchup, I just feel like the Jets are a sneaky, solid team. I'm taking them to pull an upset on the road against Carolina. And lastly, in the 1 o'clock window, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Houston Texans, and the Jags will be debuting their new franchise quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, who started to play well toward the back end of the preseason. And it's going to be interesting to see how they get off this season because we know they won't have Travis Etienne, who is expected to be an explosive game breaker within their offense. And they had some issues in protecting Lawrence. So we'll see if that happens again in the regular season. For the Texans, I think they have a sneaky good offensive roster with a lot of pieces that you like. You worry about the defense without J.J. Watt, without Jadeveon Clowney for 2 years now. And so can they find that pressure consistently will be the key to frustrate the rookie back there in the pocket. I like Houston in this game. I think offensively speaking, they have a really good matchup here against Jacksonville. Look for the Texans to win their opening game in Houston.
Man, it's that old thing, perseverance, consistency, hard work. My goal is to put the same work into, my businesses, my family that I put into football, and I've been running with that mantra since I got married back in '97, that if I'm going to have a successful marriage, I got to, the same hard work and same consistency and discipline I had on the football field, I got to put in my marriage and with my kids and with my businesses and all that. So it teaches you a lot, man. How to deal with your fellow man and not look at his color, but look at what he can do for the overall good of what you're trying to accomplish. So sports to me in general is just an incredible deal when you talk about football specifically because of the closeness of guys. I just believe it's an amazing sport.
And welcome back to Football Game Plan's NFL All-32 show. Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. And now we bring in our analyst, Chris James, who will also take a look at NFL Week 1, this time at the 4 p.m. window. That's what we love about these games, man. You got 1 o'clock games, 4 o'clock games, and a primetime game. So, Chris, thank you for joining us. Let's jump right into it. First one on the docket is a rematch of the playoff game that we saw last year, the Cleveland Browns traveling to Kansas City once again to take on the Chiefs. You look at this matchup, top to bottom, good offense versus good offense, good defense in Cleveland, okay opportunistic defense in Kansas City. Which way you going in this game and why?
So I'm actually going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs, but here's why. So to your comment, Kansas City doesn't have an upper echelon defense, but when you have upper echelon players on your defense, Tyrann Mathieu, Chris Jones, what it does is it puts the appropriate amount of pressure on a team like, let's say, Cleveland, where you have interior pressure from Chris Jones. You're going to have a guy monitoring the back end against a quarterback that sometimes struggles with turning the ball over. And then that Cleveland defense, let's go ahead and be honest. On paper, it's excellent. But we don't know yet. We haven't seen it. And last year, even without the pieces that they currently have, they weren't as good. So I think this will end up being a really close matchup. I think my prediction was 33-28 as a final score on this one. I think that both offenses will be efficient, effective, and even with a Super Bowl caliber roster in Cleveland, I can't go against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid.
So even from a betting perspective, it sounds like you're taking the Browns +6, but you also like Kansas City straight up.
Correct. That is accurate.
And we look at this next matchup. This is interesting because if you asked me about this game 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, I would have had a completely different answer. And that's Miami traveling to Foxborough to take on the Dolphins. I'm sorry, to take on the Patriots. So now, I mean, prior to 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, you had Cam Newton as a starting quarterback. Things look a lot better for New England, much better talent around him. Now you sub that out, and you have a rookie starting versus a team that's kind of cut from the same cloth defensively as New England and the Miami Dolphins. What are your thoughts on this game?
So prior to the Cam Newton decision in New England, I actually had New England winning this division. That's how much confidence I had in Cam Newton being the starting quarterback. With Mac Jones in this particular game, I'm still going to take the Patriots in a close matchup. Here's why. I think that they're not going to put Mac Jones in a position to make mistakes. I think it's going to be a lot of checkdowns, short routes, control the game, ball control, a lot of rushes. And I know Tua will eventually be a good quarterback. I have faith in him. But in this particular matchup, I know they're going to take advantage of everything that he does not do well, and they're going to force him into some mistakes. So I'm going to go with New England winning a close one over Miami in this particular matchup.
Well, what's your take on the run game right now in Miami? I feel like when you look at their entire offense, you love the perimeter options, you love the tight end play, you love what they have on defense, but I feel like there's a glaring hole right now at running back.
Absolutely. So Myles Gaskin has been a target of a lot of people in fantasy, and to an extent that makes sense. He's going to get volume. But I just don't see the level of special that I see in some other backfields in Miami. I think that there's some misused pieces that are going to be there. Again, Gaskin's the starter. They brought in Malcolm Brown with a decent contract to be probably their goal line guy. And then Ahmed, the guy who's the number 3 running back, he's probably their biggest home run hitter. I just don't see a lot of special in that backfield. That's no disrespect to them. There's other rosters that have more talent, and that's the area that they need to focus on. That's probably going to be their biggest deterrent as far as winning games this season.
Next, we have Green Bay at New Orleans at Jacksonville, right? So the Saints game was supposed to be in New Orleans, but we know about Hurricane Ida. That game has now been moved to Jacksonville, where the Jaguars play. Green Bay still brings that offense, still brings a lot of cachet with them. The Saints, however, have a new starting quarterback. They still have the same cast of characters on defense, maybe some new pieces at receiver. But the biggest thing here is you're going to have a matchup between Aaron Rodgers and Jameis Winston. What's your take?
So this is my stay away if you are betting on any games this weekend game, because you have no clue what's going to happen. This was actually an upset special of mine when they were playing in the Superdome, and I still have faith in the Saints team. Reason why? That offensive line for Green Bay is still in shambles. They don't have their all-pro tackle in Bakhtiari, and that Saints front 4, it's actually about 7 deep, they get after the quarterback. So they could actually affect Aaron Rodgers very much. It's just on the offensive side of the ball with the Saints. I have faith in Jameis Winston season long, but week 1, I think they're probably going to have a muted offense. So that's why it's a toss-up game. I would actually have this as my upset special of the week if it was more regular. But I think this will be a close matchup. Green Bay eking it out probably, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints eke it out in a close matchup.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch because I think both teams should have some success running the football. But you're right, that Saints defensive front, even without a Trey Hendrickson, even without a David Onyemata, they are still very deep up front. You saw the progression from Peyton Turner as a rookie in the preseason, as well as Marcus Davenport in the preseason as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how this defensive front continues to get that pressure, because we know they have to affect the pocket against a guy like Aaron Rodgers.
Correct.
And lastly, we have the Giants playing host to the Denver Broncos. Teddy Bridgewater starting quarterback for the New York Giants. Daniel Jones back in the saddle again for the New York New York Giants. And will Saquon Barkley play? And if he does, how much he'll play, or how much he'll be a factor? What's your thoughts on this ball game? Because I think this is a key week 1 matchup for both teams, quite honestly.
So this is a key matchup, correct. And the reason I'm saying that is because I think there's a chance the Giants have a subpar record this year, a 5-12 record, and this is the first loss they suffer. People forget how good that Denver defense is, and they have bookends and Von Miller, and they have Bradley Chubb. But also the most disrespected quarterback in the NFL in Teddy Bridgewater, a guy that people act like can't play football. With all due respect, a guy with under center in Teddy Bridgewater, this Denver Broncos team is my dark horse to make it to the AFC Championship against a team like Kansas City or even a Cleveland, because they have that level of talent on that side of the ball. And that offense, they've been stacking talent a long time. They're going to get comfortable, let Teddy do his thing. And I love Denver in this game. I would take them straight up. I would take them against the spread. I think they win this by 2 scores.
You know what's fascinating about this game is when you look at that Denver roster that you talked about, how would you compare this roster to the Saints roster that Teddy Bridgewater took over a couple of seasons ago when he led them to 5-0 record?
Sure. So the exterior players are better on this Denver roster. I mean, they're deep. Their third receiver is KJ Hamler, a guy who's probably going to take off this season. He's a quiet as kept daily fantasy play. But that backfield, the running backs aren't as good, but that tight end position is excellent as well. And Noah Fant, I love what Denver's put together there, and having a guy like Teddy Bridgewater again. People were like, he's not a vertical type of guy. Well, when does he have vertical weapons? So now that he does, I think he'll push the ball down the field more than people think. I think this Denver offense will be dynamic, and they will score a lot of points this season.
Outstanding stuff, CJ. Follow him at CJ Florida9 on Twitter, and tell everybody where they can get your new podcast that you have debuting. You're on episode 3 this week. What's up with the new podcast?
Sure. So it's a podcast called Chopping It Up with CJ. I have 3 different versions of it. So we have Weekside Wednesdays. That's where I'm going to cover the games that just passed the week prior. Turf Talk Thursdays. So I'm going to go over every matchup that's coming up, including even the fantasy slate for Thursday night. And I might give you some betting odds for this week that I really like. And then Fantasy Football Fridays, where I give you everything you need, whether it's for your consistent season-long fantasy team or for daily fantasy. I'll give you some updates there as well. And that's on Spotify. Again, Chopping It Up with CJ. That's where you can find it.
You heard the man. Follow him on Twitter at CJ Florida9. Chris, thanks for joining us. We'll step aside one more time and be back with more football game plans, NFL All-32. And welcome back to Football Game Plans NFL All-32 show. Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Now I'm joined with Gene Clemens, who does a great job covering football at all levels. Follow him on Twitter at Gene Clemens. Follow his YouTube or subscribe to his YouTube channel at youtube.com/Coach Gene Clemens. Gene, thank you for taking time. We have a great back end of the show now today to discuss the primetime games on a week 1 slate. And we got a big one tonight, man, as the Dallas Cowboys travel to Tampa to take on the reigning Super Bowl champion, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And when you look at this matchup, you have a lot of offense in Dallas. You knock on wood, all those playmakers that they have. And yes, they are going to be without Zach Martin, but on the Tampa side, you have a great defensive front seven and also a great offense. So it should be make for an entertaining game.
Absolutely. I think one of the things we're going to have to look at early is can the Dallas Cowboys keep Dak Prescott from getting pressure right up his face? We know that the Buccaneers like to send pressure, and they really like to send pressure from their linebackers and Devin White, especially because he's really good at timing up snaps. So if he gets the timing right from the snap, and he's able to get pressure, Vita Vea is able to get pressure, and Ndamukong Suh is able to get pressure right up in the face of Dak Prescott, that's going to be very, very detrimental to the chances that Dallas have of coming out on top, because he won't be able to go east and west. Those defensive ends are way too athletic to allow him to break the pocket going east and west.
Yeah, and that's going to be the biggest key, man. When you think about Dak first game back from the injury, will he trust his ankle enough to where he can scramble up, buy time with his pocket? Because that's what also makes him a very special quarterback. And when you think about it, and when you look at this from a big picture standpoint, a lot of people will look at Tampa and say, okay, they're going to be back in the mix. But some people are looking at the Cowboys and saying, well, this is a must-win game. If they don't win this, then they're not going to be any good this year. What are your thoughts on the Cowboys long term?
I think they'll be okay. I think it's going to take a little bit for Dak to get back in, get his rhythm back. He hasn't played in a very long time. We don't know the trust level he has with the ankle. We really don't know what the shoulder is going to be like. We're assuming that he's going to be good, because why would you put your quarterback that you've now invested so much money in out on the field if he's not healthy? That doesn't seem like something you want to do early in the season in a non-division game. So I think they'll be all right in the long term, even if they struggle, which is no diss versus the defending Super Bowl champion. If they struggle in this game, I think by the time they get into week 3, week 4, they'll be rolling as long as they stay healthy. And I think they'll have some success going forward this season for sure.
Talking about long term, you look at the next game. This is a Sunday night matchup, Chicago taking on the Rams. You have Andy Dalton going up against that Rams defense. Everyone in America wants to see Justin Fields. Will we see Justin Fields in this ball game? If so, or if not, then what do you think about their chances against the Rams defense?
I think we'll see Justin Fields. I don't know if we'll see him playing traditional quarterback. I think they may bring him in some situations to get his feet wet. There's obviously always the opportunity that a quarterback could go down, especially versus a defense that's so potent as this Rams defense is. I really think they're going to try to let Andy Dalton play himself out the position. And whether they're doing that because they really believe that Andy Dalton gives them the best chance to win right now, or whether they're doing that to maybe try to extend their leash and say, hey, listen, we went with Andy Dalton early, but now we've got Justin Fields in here. We're going to need another year, in order to get that done. Whatever the long game play is for them, I think it starts with Andy Dalton starting this game and trying to be more of a game manager instead of a playmaker like Justin Fields. I don't agree, but I think that's the way they go.
Yeah, and one last thought about this game. Matthew Stafford was brought in for first-round picks and also some other draft picks. What are your thoughts on him and how it fits for this Ram team? Are they a Matt Stafford away from competing?
I don't think they're a Matt Stafford away, because Matt Stafford's greatest gift is not something that the Rams actually employ very often. His greatest strength is his arm strength and his ability to push the ball downfield. When you look at the receivers that the Rams have, they're all intermediate possession type receivers. They don't really have the guy like they had, some years ago back when they had Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks back there. Thank you. When they had Brandon Cooks back there, if you had him in that offense with Brandon Cooks, I could probably say, yeah, because now Brandon Cooks becomes more of a threat. But with guys like Woods, who's he's great at what he does, but he's an intermediate receiver. Cooper Kupp is an intermediate receiver, in my opinion. They're not guys who are going to blow the top off the defense. I think that they're going to still need to be potent in the run game. They're going to still need to be able to get things done defensively if they even want a shot to get to the Super Bowl. But I don't think that they were a Matt Stafford away from going to the Super Bowl.
And the final game is the Monday night game. We only got one this year. Is Baltimore going out to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders, and which should be a fantastic matchup. Should be an exciting game at that new stadium, as there'll be fans in the stands in the stadium at Allegiant Field out there in Vegas. So when you look at this matchup, you got Baltimore, Titan of the AFC, and a young, scrappy, up-and-coming Raiders ball club. What's your take on this one?
I think that the Raiders, a lot of people like to bang on the Raiders because of what they do with their draft choices and how they go about making up their roster. But you can't deny that they have talent. They have talent at the running back position. They have talent at the tight end. They have some talented pass catchers. Could they have a better quarterback? Yes, but they have competent quarterback play. And I think that's all you really need is competent quarterback play in order to continue to move yourself in the right direction. Will the defense be able to stop that vaunted Baltimore Ravens rushing attack? I don't know. I did like what they were able to do versus Kansas City, but Baltimore is a completely different type of animal than Kansas City. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out and whether they're able to stop the Gus bus or whether or not it's going to be another long day for them in the trenches.
Yeah, we'll have to see, man. Should be interesting nonetheless when you think about it from front to end. Great action of week one in NFL football. Follow Gene on Twitter at Gene Clemens. Subscribe to his YouTube channel at youtube.com/Coach Gene Clemens. And we'll step aside for one more break and be back with more Football Game Plan's NFL All-32 show. Be sure to order your copy of the Go-Go Offense by Coach Brennan Marion on footballgameplan.com/Go-Go Offense. Coach Marion goes through the ins and outs of his explosive offense, one that's tearing up the college football field and putting a lot of points on the scoreboard. Again, you can order your copy at footballgameplan.com/Go-Go Offense. So that's it for this edition of Football Game Plan's NFL All-32 show. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Be sure to follow me on all of my social media accounts. And don't forget to check out and subscribe to the Football Game Plan Network located at youtube.com/Football Game Plan. Also subscribe on iTunes to Football Game Plan Podcast and leave us a 5-star rating.
It's E-U-E-U till I see you. by this point, you're reading my mind. It's time for football. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, man. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, yeah.